All set.
All right, so is the meeting now open to the public?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Gina, good
All
morning.
right. Morning, everybody.
Good morning, Pam.
So-
Good morning, everybody.
Everybody. I don't know who else is going to be joining us, but it is 9 o'clock, so we should get moving here. Welcome to which meeting is this? Did you put the meeting number on there? Bob, you always put the meeting number on there. Or maybe it's on the minutes.
It's in the minutes.
Yeah.
So this is the 694th meeting.
The 694th meeting of the Architectural Licensing Board, dating back continuously without interruption to like 1933. So I'm going to.
Pandemic can stop us.
Nothing can stop us. The legislature can stop us, I suppose. No, that's not the one I want. I want screen 2. Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Got
All
it.
set.
Okay.
I can see it now.
All right. So our first order of business is review the minutes of January 15th, 2021 Architectural Licensing Board. Oops, there it is. Anybody have any, well, actually, I should say, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Phil.
I'll second, Angela.
Any comments of anybody present today? Any changes? Hearing no conversation. Move to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I think it's unanimous. Bob?
Yes.
Minutes have been accepted.
Very
Number
well.
2, comments of any concerns of any persons present today. Hearing none. Move on to item number 3, DCP Investigation Division Complaint Status Report. We have with us members of DCP staff. We have Janita Hamill and Pamela Brown with us, and I will share on my screen, which is probably hard for you all to read. We have 2 reports from them. One is the report that shows the I guess so-called backlog that's run from 1/1/2017 to 2/28/2021, which shows all of the existing. Am I right? It's a 1-page document. All of the existing cases. It shows
Yes, sir,
one
Mr.
closed.
Chairman.
Sorry, go ahead, Janita.
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly right. What you see, we're using that date frame. I guess there was a question at the January meeting and I wasn't there. I used the 01/01/2017 as a starting date because your board has asked to see the backlog and our IT group hasn't, and it's a constant battle and we keep working with them to have the reports amended. So it would be, I could run it today and should pick up everything. So
Sure.
The way this one is structured, this shows you everything that's still in the hopper and the backlog, as well as the newer complaints that we have that we're investigating.
Thank you. And this shows that there a number have been referred to legal. So basically lines 2 through lines 8 have been referred to the legal group at DCP for further, is it right to say further investigation or further action?
For review and determination of what further action needs to be taken.
Correct.
Right.
And
So Pamela Brown, Director of Investigation. So we can only comment on the work that we're performing in investigations. Anything that you would need to inquire about those cases or any case in legal would have to be discussed by legal representative. But under the Administrative Procedures Act, the first thing is always a compliance meeting. So if Cynthia decides, or excuse me, Paulette decides, they need to be brought in for a compliance meeting, she takes it after we refer it over to legal.
Yeah, understood. And this shows that item number 2, which is 2017-125, was closed.
Yes, sir.
And it was closed on February 10th. So that one's off. Settlement parties reached an agreement. Agreement reached.
Yep.
All right. Any questions from the board, or should I move on to the second document that has been prepared for us?
I have a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Please. Sure.
Yeah, so first I just actually a comment. This seems to be a much smaller list than we have been dealing with in the past. So thank you. It looks like there's been a lot of progress made generally. On item 2 that was closed recently, I don't think the people here in this meeting could answer. So I'll just bring a general question. It looks like the topic was misuse of title. I was curious because the current location of the party involved in that, their current practice does contain the words architectural services, although none of the folks in that practice, they're not claiming to be architects. So I'm just curious with the board, with language, David, is if a company is claiming to provide architectural services, but don't say that anybody there is an architect, is that a violation of the statutes?
So I am not going to interpret the statutes. That's the job of the Attorney General. I would say that this is probably one of the reasons, I'm guessing, why this complaint was brought. And I don't, without Paulette here, I guess, and she's trying, Paulette's trying to get into the meeting. I think she may not have gotten the member Zoom. So maybe if you could resend her her specific invitation, she could join us and opine on this issue. And because that would have come in the settlement, I believe, which indicates that fines were paid, and in terms of the settlement, and fairly substantial, $2,500. I mean, in terms of at least our world, that's pretty big.
Right, and if I'm going too far with my questions and asking things, I shouldn't.
No. I just can't answer it. I can answer it. I just know that from as far as interpreting statutes, my opinion is consistent with what as you represented it. When you start seeing words like architect or architectural used in description of a firm's services, there's an assumption on the public's part that there are therefore licensed architects. I'm just guessing that that's what this is all about, but I can't speak specifically about this case because I don't know.
Right, and I was surprised because the party involved in this this complaint is an actual building official. So, being a public official and violating statutes, I guess I was surprised.
But if they reached a settlement agreement, they paid a fine for the misuse of a title, but they're still using the word architectural services.
Well, Twig, I just don't know. And I think we need to hear, there may be further follow-up action that needs to happen, but this doesn't tell us anything about the action. Now, it's also my understanding that once something has gone through this process and the firm is being identified now and it's closed, it's potentially, I think it's in the public domain. So it's no longer, what is the term? Redacted, because it's been completed, the investigation. So I think if Paulette can get onto the meeting, which she's trying to do, she'll be able to tell us more. Yeah.
I can't resend the invitation once the meeting starts. She could use the link in the agenda I can't even get to my email right now because the screen sharing is
So,
locked
so
up.
if she, can you see her and can you make her a, can you change her status?
No, I don't see her, David. I'm scrolling through the list. I don't even see her as being logged on.
Well, this is
All right.
Pam. I'll try to send her a separate email to get her on.
You know,
She can just use the call-in number.
yeah, or Pam, thank you. If you could, Pam, she could use the link in the agenda. And once I
Yes.
see her as an attendee, I'll bump her up to panelist and she'll be right on.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
All right, so while we're waiting for Paulette to get on, let's shift to the other. Well, no, you had some other questions, Angela. You said you had several questions.
Yeah, and then so just again, great to see progress. I do see that legal still has, I think 3 or 4 from 2018. So, hoping those will be moving along, similar to the one that they just closed. I think that really was my other comment.
Okay, let me just quickly tell Paulette that she should be hearing.
Question.
David, Gina has a question.
Go ahead, Gina, please. Gina, can you identify yourself, please?
Once this is settled, is the complaint filed like on a website or some way, especially because it said ethical conduct? I mean, is there a way for other people to see that this has been settled or, what the outcome was? Because I know other states do that. I just didn't know if that happens in Connecticut.
And I think that's a department response. I don't know, Bob, can you respond to that?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to bring Paulette on. Can you repeat that, Gina? I'm working with this.
No problem, Bob. I was wondering that now that this is filed and has been settled, is it posted somewhere? Like, if somebody wanted to look up this company or see that there was issues because they've been fined and also because it was, unlicensed, ethical contact, whatever it was. I don't know what the resolution and the settlement was, but is it posted somewhere so that now that it is public domain? It made me think of that because David said public domain.
I don't know. I don't know if these where they're posted. Not that I'm aware of, but I mean it is closed now. So maybe Janita or Pam do you know of?
Yes, so this is Pamela. The complaints are not posted anywhere online, if that's what your question is. It is available to the public under Freedom of Information. They can call in their office and inquire, write in, email in, and they're entitled to see all the documents under Freedom of Information. We generally get a lot of inquiries through email, through the phone calls, and we have now our live chat. And so if anyone wants to just basically have a simple discussion, we will review the documents over the phone. If they want a copy, they're entitled to a copy and we mail those out. These days, we're actually emailing them out instantly.
FOI, do you require a formal FOI request, or do you just, if people request something that's been closed, you just provide it, Janita?
It is a written request. Sometimes it can come in through a phone call, and then we'll discuss. Mostly what we get, most of the volume, as far as the inquiries go, are through a phone call. Can you tell me about this architect or this contractor? And then we'll have a discussion. There's one complaint. There are 3 complaints, and we'll list out what they are. And sometimes they'll say, well, can I have that? Yes, email us and we'll get that out to you right away. Or they just want to know, the specifics over the phone, and they're fine. For the most cases, people are fine and they just go along about their way once they have a conversation about it.
So specifically, and maybe Paulette, we have to wait for her, and we are working on that. But it says,
excuse me, David, she should be coming on now.
okay.
And if I could, I think, Gina's question is fair. And I've noticed at some of the NCARB national and regional meetings we've had in discussions with other states, those agencies do have, they have an area of their website where they post, resolutions in the case of fines or other penalties that professionals have incurred. They actually do post them openly on their websites.
So Paulette just joined us. I don't know if she's heard any of this. I presume not, but we're in the midst of discussing the reports Janita's reports and Pamela's reports. And so, we noticed that there's one, as an example, item number 2, you should see it on your screen. I'm sharing my screen. And this item number 2, it says the settlement agreement was reached. And so one question is a settlement agreement available publicly?
Yeah, if you want to, I can send it to you if you want to say it. Yeah.
No. It's just, I think it's more like, why don't you?
We never post it. It never goes live anywhere that people can just access it, but it's not confidential. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the question, is that's just DCP policy not to post these things? It's sort of the.
Yeah, only hearing decisions get posted.
Gotcha. Angela, do you want to query that further, or Gina?
No, and I don't think we've had a hearing decision in quite a long time, so I'd be curious to see how that would look. But and we've also haven't really had a settlement with a substantial fine in a long time. So this was interesting to see. Paulette, before you joined, my other question was if this party that was involved in this settlement is now at a location where they are using the term architectural services, yet they are not claiming to be an architect, is that still a violation of our statutes?
If they use, I would have to, I always kind of try to look at the context of it too, because sometimes what happens is there are web services that will draw this information, or they describe a company a certain way, and it may not be that company itself putting that information out. So I always have to look at that context, because I have one case, in fact, where that's what the individual is claiming, that Manta, I think, is some kind of
yeah, it's a business,
right. And so you
Right.
give, and you might not be giving them that information to say that you are an architect, for example. But
No,
they
this is
get-
their, this
right.
is the actual company's website where they're working.
And who is the company? An architectural company?
It says that it provides architectural services, yet the descriptions of the 4 or 5 individuals that are listed on their list of staff do not claim to be architects.
This is
Okay.
specifically GTS Design LLC, item 2.
Correct. And I'm not saying that it's GTS. What I'm saying is the individual involved in this GTS
So I wonder if your
case
old
on
website
line
is-
item 2.
Okay.
No, it's where they are now. It's where they moved on to.
Because
Is
I know,
saying that.
if I remember,
So it
this
would
company-
probably be a new case if it
yeah,
needed
it
to
may
be.
be. It may be, or it just may be a violation of or breach of what we had agreed to. But I'll take a look at it, because they were supposed to take down any description such as that from their website. And if I'm remembering them, they just recently resolved this case.
Yeah, and I can't think of the name of the new location, but I'll go back. It's it's
Okay,
easy
all
to
right.
find.
And why don't you if you can send me that information, because I can't figure out how to get out of this thing and look on my.
Yeah,
my
I'll do it
screen.
after. Thank you, Paulette.
Okay.
Paulette, can I ask you a question too? It's Gina.
Yeah.
Can I request a copy of this settlement as well? Because I'd like to keep it on record in case I get any other inquiries. At least I could say it was settled.
Yeah, I mean, you could say it's settled, but yeah, I can send it to David. I can send it to you. You can just disperse it, or what?
I
Distribute it.
I think, Gina, I think the best thing for anybody is, because you're talking about something from a professional organization, also, is for Gina, for you to make that request to Paulette directly via email and let her just respond to it. Unless the board wants to include, does the board want to include copies of settlements? Because we could in our future board meetings. Is that something we'd like to have?
It's not necessary for me.
Yeah, I'll just speak for myself. I would say I would do it on a case-by-case basis. I don't really need all of them.
Yeah, all right, so I think if
I
there's a
can see
specific
Angela's
request,
face though. She might want to.
I don't need to see it, but I think Gina has a right to ask for it, especially if she was the initial complainant or the AI Connecticut was. And therefore, I think just make the request directly. We now know that there's restriction on this because it's available to the public.
Yeah, and
once
that'd
it's
be,
settled.
and that'd be an FOI. I mean, I consider it FOI request and I can just send it.
Right,
Yeah, it's not a problem.
okay.
Paula, thank you.
Any other questions about this, or can we move to the current report? I'm going to move to the current report. And here it is. The only item on, so there's been no open ones, and the only activity that's occurred in this cycle since January, since our last meeting, is this one was closed. Is that correct, Janita?
Yes, sir,
Pamela?
Mr. Chairman, that is exactly correct. And the way the report, not just for architects, but the way all board reports are structured through our IT group, that 2-month time frame only will pick up whatever came in new, what is still open in that 2-month time frame, or what is closed during that 2-month time frame. So in order for me to continue to give you and your members the backlog and the information that you've been requesting, that's why I used the date that you saw on the first report. I just did this as a way of comparison to show just how limited the reports are, and that I have to run a larger report, and then I have to cull out anything that doesn't belong in it, so I can present a report that will give most of the boards at what they're looking for at that time.
This works for us. Thank you.
You're quite welcome, sir.
And Paulette, back to you. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the other report briefly, because I think that was the other question that we had. Items 3 through 8 are current investigations. Is there anything you can share? Not, and I realize not results, but just in terms of status, I guess, if you would, how are things going? Because some of those go back several years now, 3 years.
Okay, I'm trying to enlarge this screen. I'm terrible at this. Zoom. Let me just. All right, so you're asking me. So all right. So these cases, I'm starting to look at them to see if it's something that I would actually do enforcement on, because I'm finding that some of these cases, most of these cases seem to be about individuals who are not licensed, who there may be some advertisement out there with the term architect. And so again, I look at the context and I look at what the respondent is saying is what's going on. For example, the Manta. So that's what I'm doing, kind of triaging them to see which cases I should bring to the forefront in terms of the risk to health and safety, that kind of thing. That's how we look at our cases overall. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm working on the architecture cases.
We noticed there's also an ethical one. And then there's, sometimes it's advertising, misuse of professional title, misuse unlicensed, unregistered. Are these essentially the same thing? It's just how the issue is entered in the system. It's not like a drop down. It's like you could type whatever you want in there. I'm looking at column D, which has the description of whatever the issue is.
Yeah, I don't put the description in there, so I'd leave that to Janita or Pam to answer that question.
Mr. Chairman, those are, that is information that when the complaint center is entering the complaints as they come in, they are looking at they pick the closest allegations to what the complainant has claimed is the violation. What is alleged issue is not necessarily what ends up being the final outcome after the investigation. And it is a series of drop downs.
There you go.
you
That's what I was
click on.
looking for. So it's check, 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 and whatever those boxes are, that's what appears in the issue column.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Got it. All right. Additional questions from the board or any members present? Nope. Okay, so we'll move to the next agenda item, and I wanted to thank Ms. Hamill and Ms. Brown, and you're welcome to stay with us, but if you choose not to, that's okay too. But I think Ms. Anon, Attorney Anon, I think you need to stick with us for a little bit if there's other agenda items.
David, I knew you were gonna say that. I knew it.
Well, then with that happy note, I wish the board and Mr. Chairman and everybody a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.
Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janita. Thank you, Pamela.
You're welcome. Bye now.
Before we move on to the next thing, David, for GTS design, if someone can, whoever saw whatever it is that they saw on the website, if they can send me a copy of that, because I just did a quick search and I'm just seeing those search engine like Manta and whatnot.
Yeah, Paulette, I just sent it over.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. A little concerned about board members getting involved in complaints and investigations, because at some point we may be requested to adjudicate on those things. So in the future, it would be better, I think, if those kinds of issues came through an alternative source. But if we move on, we have old business, item 5A. I don't know if Paulette, if you can update us on this. I realize it's more like a Julianne, who's now on leave, maybe, or Leslie that would be able to. But this is the status of the statutory changes. Do we know if there's a bill or a bill number that includes the department requests for statutory changes, and are they moving forward?
That would definitely be a Leslie question, because I don't have any updates on that. Leslie O'Brien.
I'm wondering if Bob, would it be possible, because I don't necessarily, it would be good to inform the board, but prior to our next meeting, which will occur in May, if we can get if you can reach out to the I guess to Leslie or David Cousins and just get just basic status of the statutes, and then we can just I don't know if would an email be considered to board members be considered a public? I mean, do we have to have this in public session, or can we just would that be okay to inform the board of the statutory status? Paulette.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What was your question? I'm trying.
If Bob were to send an email to the board,
yes,
regarding this, this item, if he gets a response from, because I don't want, basically we're punting for 2 months, and is it possible without violating any kind of public meeting rules to inform the board of the statute? It's not like we're taking any actions or making it. It's just yes, the language is moving forward as part of board.
Yes, that's fine. Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Bob, you okay with that?
Yep, I will
right.
contact Leslie, and when I hear back, I will forward her response.
And this has to do with the interior design. So anything that's in the board package, if we can get a bill number, at least then we know. Unless Gina, you already have that information from your lobbying side.
Yes, we have it.
Sorry?
I don't have anything, I mean, outside of what was this, we didn't see anything else that had to do with architects.
Okay. Item 5B, we're gonna continue that to the next meeting. There's some discussion and correspondence that needs to happen still on my part, and it hasn't happened yet. the next item, 5C, application of Ms. Shubhashri Balakumar to sit on the architectural registration examination per section 20-289-3A2 of the regulations of architectural licensure. We will get now an update from Ms. Angela Cahill regarding the review of this application. And I should just compliment Angela on this potential PhD thesis that she wrote for our benefit.
Yeah, David, if I can for just 1 second, I want to say I think she'd make both you and I look bad because like she did, she must have spent Lord knows how much time on this. I think she might have actually flown to India. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just hope it wasn't, on her company time. But go ahead, Angela.
But great job, Angela.
I will be right back.
Well, you guys gave me a foreign degree. I mean, what are you? It was my turn, right? Do I get the turn off for the next 3?
Well, procedurally, maybe we should have a motion in place and then have a discussion. So I'll make a motion to approve this candidate. I won't even try to review the name again for licensure as a direct application per section 20-289-3A3. Do I have a second? Actually, okay, we're gonna have to let Bob know.
I assume the motion is to accept her to sit for the exam.
Correct.
Not for licensure.
Direct application to sit for the exam. Yes.
So I second.
The friendly amendment approved. Okay. So it was motion made by David Barkin, seconded by Phil Cerrone. All right, Angela, please proceed.
Well, I felt it was important because the area where the candidate was lacking our typical NCARB requirements was in the non-accredited degree, and the degree being from a different country, I felt it was important for me to research that and not just research the degree itself, but do that comparative analysis with what our standards are here in the United States. So, it's a lengthy document, but it really involved pretty simple communications. One was researching how India goes ahead to accredit and maintain accreditation of their degree programs. Another was contacting NCARB and having a conversation about the analysis that they had done. Another was actually speaking to a university professor here in Connecticut about curriculum and why the United States curriculum has this amount of general education as opposed to in India. And then finally doing that more specific research on comparing actual United States accredited curriculum versus Indian accredited curriculum. So obviously the whole was in the humanities. And so then my next, path was talking to her employer and her colleague, both of whom highly recommend her, and about her skills that are they lacking in this. David, you've switched screens.
Yes, sorry about that.
Is she lacking, and could she benefit from this type of curriculum? And I had those discussions with her employer and her colleagues, and they felt absolutely not. And actually during the interview, the personal online interview and portfolio review, she was quite eloquent and shared with me not only her design and document work, but her communication work as well, because that's really where the question is can she communicate effectively? Does she need English composition classes and so forth? And so every little path I tried to find that she might have a deficiency in was closed in my opinion, and that she really did not need to pursue additional general education. Now, she is making a sacrifice in that she really wanted the national certificate, but she's lived in Connecticut this whole time, be it 15 years, or she's settled here, her kids in college here. She's a Connecticut resident and dedicated to performing work in Connecticut. So she felt it's the best path just to get a Connecticut license, and she's not even thinking that she'll need to get licensure in other states at, at this point in her life. So her goal is to be able to legally practice and benefit her employer as being a licensed architect in their practice here in Connecticut.
Okay. Any additional discussion, Twig or Phil, or that you'd like to share at this?
Yeah, so Phil, I mean, again, I already second this, but I would say that without question, I would allow her to sit for the exam. I think that, I mean, as Angela very well pointed out in this, there's only a few courses. There's really just humanities and, non-architectural courses that she was lacking. So I have no problem with this applicant at all sitting for the exam.
Twig, would you like to add anything to this discussion at this point?
I would. One of my questions was, and I saw that it was mainly humanities, but I also saw that part of the gap was in ethics courses. And I think that's important. I think ethics are important to any course curriculum or professional curriculum, not just architecture. So what I apologize, it's been, I don't remember exactly what Angela's document said, but when you spoke to the professor here about why are humanities courses important to an architectural degree, what were you told?
Well, there's a lot of opinions as to the structure of the NAB requirements. This particular person isn't necessarily in agreement with the NAB requirements and feels that our students here in the US need more specific architectural training. But they, speaking on behalf of the NAB requirements, they felt that NAB's direction, and they've actually increased the amount of general education courses over the past changes in the NAB system. They felt that NAB's goals were making sure that the students were well-rounded. And that's really what it came down to. I don't know if they have some concern that architectural practice will change in the future, that we are some sort of dinosaurs and that our instruments of service are going to change completely. And we just need to be, super smart people all around to be, and the universities really don't speak to trying to solve our challenges as practitioners the way we operate now. They're really looking more to the far future in that, they're really leaning more towards a liberal arts educated person. So I'm not sure. As an employer, I don't necessarily agree with that either. I find the students that graduate don't really know how to put buildings together, and it's something that we have to teach on our end. And the universities and the NAB actually agree with that. They say, we're just trying to give you smart kids that can design. It's your job to teach them how to build a building and how to draw details.
So I also think that this analysis was relative to a Bachelor of Architecture. Can you confirm that, Angela?
Correct. So
master's in architecture has different requirements. A 5-year
requirement. It's not a master's, correct.
And I would like, the presumption is that those humanities have already been accepted and by virtue of a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science degree, and therefore in a master's they're not. It's all technical. Right.
This would be equivalent to a 5-year B.Arch degree in the U.S. It was a 5-year program that she went to.
So well. I have a couple comments. The licensing. Go ahead.
Right, sorry, Twig had that other question about the professional practice. Can I address that?
Sure.
Yeah, so we did speak about that because I think it was 4 credits or something in professional practice, including ethics. And we did speak about that. Spoke about that with Shuba and with her employer and with the university professor. And, they felt if she had been deficient in the professional practice class in India, that coursework in India actually wouldn't have really been relevant, because if she's going to practice here in the US, she needs to know how AIA contracts operate and ethics of her own local place where she's going to practice. So I questioned her employer and said, you know, well, do you feel she's deficient in professional practice? And he said, absolutely not. She, you know, drafts the contracts for me. She understands the language. You know, she does CA and goes out and represents us and then comes back to me with the specific documentation. He didn't feel that she needed to take further professional practice classes. However, I don't feel that the candidate would be adverse to completing any type of CEUs or things having to do with professional practice. So that is a consideration, that it's a recommendation we could make. Now, taking that a bit further, I asked the university professor, you know, what is your syllabus at University of Hartford on professional practice? So she could share with me, you know, what does she teach? But then thinking a little bit more about it, several of the exams include quite a bit of meat on professional practice and ethics, in my opinion. And I feel that through the course of studying for the exam, she will more than enough cover the material that will be necessary to make up for what the recommendation was from the national comparison. So I think, you know, either the motion stands and we feel that she's comfortable and through the course of studying for the exam, she will you know, solidify that understanding of ethics and professional practice, or we could modify the motion that she's required to take a certain number of hours of professional practice CEU learning, you know, webinars or what have you.
Well, I would think, Angela, I'm not sure, but I would think if we were to put a condition on sitting for the exam, I think we'd basically be denying. We'd be saying, we're not approving for examination. I don't know how we would administratively. It would be a burden administratively to have somebody like take the exam, in the meantime have to demonstrate additional CEUs or additional to us. By approving this, we're saying we're really just opening the gate, say take the exam, and then the rest of it is.
Right. I wasn't sure if that was something that Bob could collect, you know, so Bob's really the gateway to allow her to, you know, sign up and schedule the exam through NCARB. And I didn't know if that's something that, you know, he would first need to see that she took, you know, 2 webinars or whatever it was, you know, however many learning units. But if you're saying that that's really not a process that we could go through, it's either, you know, yay or nay.
I think we're at a yes/no decision, and it's not yes with conditions. But I want to reinforce what Angela said about the exam, and that yes, ethics are tested in the exam process. My biggest concern personally, whereas I do think ethics are incredibly important, but health, safety, and welfare is what we regulate, you know, public safety. And I think through examination and licensure in Connecticut, what we're most looking at is protecting the public, and I believe the exam will fill in those gaps, if any gaps exist in ethical training. And I'm not sure that so I just want to put that out there. Twig, please continue.
Yeah, I have 2 follow-up things. And the first, to your point, David, if I remember correctly, looking at the complaint log that we just reviewed, there were a number of complaints that had ethical conduct attached to them. And so I think that speaks to the importance of having solid ethics training, because just because of that, if everyone was operating ethically, I would not expect to see complaints about ethics. So I'm just keeping that in mind. My question next is, are these humanities courses available from any community college. I mean, they're not like some of the applications that we've had before that I voted against. The candidates hadn't met all the architectural requirements. They had work experience, but they didn't have the educational credentials that they needed. So this is the opposite, where she has all the professional credentials, but lacks in the humanities and the ethics and so forth. So are these courses available from any college where they don't have to be University of Hartford or Yale?
So unfortunately,
Which has
it's
been
hard
problematic
to say.
for Connecticut.
Yeah, it
because
has
they
been
are so limited.
Yeah, absolutely. The architectural courses are limited in Connecticut, especially when you're working full time and you have, you know, a kid in college. It's hard to say what humanities courses would be allowed. So the really difficult thing about this process that she went through, she paid, you know, an extravagant amount of money to have NCARB do this analysis. And the conclusion that NCARB came to wasn't just that she would need to take, you know, 2.5 years of humanity classes full time as a student. It was that they would have to pre-approve the classes. So she would literally have to look into, okay, can I take this community college one at night online, or am I going to be required to go on campus to St. Joe's, you know, or whatever. And she would have to send that down to NCARB and have them, you know, approve whether she can sign up for that class or not. The process seemed just really unreasonable. So that's when she sort of threw her hands up and said, you know, forget it. I'm not going through this NCARB process. I'm going to have to live with, you know, just having a state license and go that route. So as a board, you know, if we were to enter into this, you know, discussion of other requirements she might need to make in terms of qualifying for the exam and say that she does need to take some humanities classes, then would we have to pre-approve where those classes were? I don't know that I'm ready to get into looking into the curriculum of an English class and a history class and a, you know, biology class.
I agree with David. I don't want to be the arbiter or manage her post-exam continuing education. I personally, I would not attach any qualifiers to, you know, this approval. You can sit for the exam, but you have to do X, Y, and Z after that. I don't think that's, personally, I don't think that's this board's mission.
And can I add something
I
to
just
that?
wonder if she's been here for the last, you know, for working in the United States for at least the last 15 years, and humanities courses are generally available at any community college, you know, that are more convenient, less expensive. We're not asking anybody to go to Yale or University of Hartford. That, and you've already done the work and paid the money to have NCARB review your credentials.
Right. I think it's more of a time thing, Twig, because if she was a full-time day student somewhere, that would take 2 years. So taking night classes for this amount of credits would probably take 4 or 5 years. And that's just, in her mind, it's just not gonna.
I got my entire degree,
not gonna
nights,
work.
weekends, and vacations in 5 years. So
Right.
I understand it's hard.
Yeah. And just going back to the complaint report, you know, my interpretation of the complaint report is these are all folks that are not licensed architects. I don't see any of them with any license number. There's no credential under column L. So, you know, these are folks that are
Well, we
claiming
can't
to be
tell who they
architects.
are because they're.
Oh, you're right. You're right. No, I'm sorry. I totally
say who
misspoke.
the names are. So
Yeah.
when I look at them, ethical conduct.
So might they be, David or Paulette, might they be licensed?
Well, I would think, I'm
be.
guessing that certain ones like 7 and 10 may actually be licensed architects. whereas the others, based on their unlicensed, unregistered category or misuse of professional title, probably are not. I'm just guessing from this, because it's whatever. Like
And ethical conduct can be just it. You can't. You might not even really know what that means, because there's no statute that's assigned to that, so it may not even mean that. Can I just add one thing about your discussion regarding that applicant? If the board can just keep in mind that all applicants should be treated the same way in terms of how you look at their background in general. So, just be careful about adding any new or different requirements than that you would have for, let's say, candidates who are in the US or have a US educational background, because we just want to avoid, the issue or potential issue of, and I know this is not this board, but any potential issue of keeping individuals who are who have a different background, their education, whether it's in Canada or whatever, from coming into this market. And I know this is not this board. I can tell from the conversation that this is not the direction you want to go, but just keep that in mind, that all the candidates should be treated equally in terms of how you analyze their background, and not adding anything additional in terms of what would be required. I see what NCARB is requiring or wants to do with this particular individual. I don't want to add anything more, but that's what I just wanted to say.
Thank you. I understand what you're talking about, Paulette. I don't know if do we have any other discussion. I think we're in the future, ethical conduct, if it's questionable, will be brought up through the complaint process and then dealt with then. At that point, through that process and a legal review, I'm just talking hypothetically of anybody, a legal review, and a member of this board would stand down and then work with the legal department. And if there was a hearing, let's say, and a suggestion or recommendation of additional action, that's where you might see a recommendation for additional coursework or study or something like that to fill a gap in somebody because of a demonstration of a lack of ethics or a lack of whatever, a lack of understanding of structural systems or something like that.
And I do have a case that I'm going to be requesting a step down for a compliance meeting. So I will send that to you, David, when I get my compliance meeting notice ready to go out.
Thank you.
I realize, especially from attending a Jesuit university, that ethics can be kind of fuzzy. But when I
don't know what to make of that statement.
Some people have some somewhat flexible ethics. But when I see it as a complaint, a single complaint, or among other complaints, on roughly a quarter of the complaints that are listed, that suggests to me that ethics is not unimportant, that it is an important part of the profession. I'm going to continue to plant my flag along with NCARB's flag. And if NCARB thinks that these courses are important, I think the candidate ought to take them and not go around the NCARB process.
And I'd just like to add I'm gonna, I guess I'll argue a little bit about that. I think NCARB, well, first of all, it's NAAB's evaluation.
I'm sorry, yeah.
And secondly, as the accreditation body for architectural schools, they have a rule book. And so when they're looking at stuff, I think they're basically saying this person does not meet are NAAB educational requirements. It comes to us in this case to evaluate what we think. It's our it's within our purview to make a decision to allow somebody to sit, whether or not they meet all the requirements of NCARB. It's the very reason why we have this other avenue, this other direction to take. If we simply always just relied on the NCARB NAB analysis, we would basically be saying we don't have an alternate path, but we do have an alternate path. And that's what we're discussing here. So understand and respect your position, Twig, but I think that we don't work for NCARB. We're a board of the state of Connecticut, and we have an alternative path. And you want to counter that, or should we call the question?
We can call the question.
Call the question. All in favor of the motion to allow the individual to sit for the licensing exams as a direct applicant in the state of Connecticut, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Angela, you're on mute.
Oh, I thought since I've
Oh,
heard
no,
the
you
report,
stood
I don't-
down. So we have, I'm sorry.
You have my recommendation,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Twig. Twig.
Twig votes no.
So we have a quorum of the board and a majority has voted to approve. Am I correct in that, Bob? Okay.
Yes.
Then the candidate is permitted to sit for the exam. That was an excellent discussion and a wonderful, wonderful evaluation by Angela. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to the agenda. Under new business, the following candidates have passed the architectural registration exam and are recommended by the Department of Consumer Protection for licensing as architects in the state of Connecticut. Bob, is this the complete list, or is there anybody else you wanted to add by addenda?
No, David, this is the complete list.
Andrea E. Olson, Winna Japardi, Cole Peterson, and Michael Semenov. Motion to approve. Anybody?
I'll move. It's Angela.
Second, Phil.
All in favor? Or is there any discussion? No discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Twig?
I said aye. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
We have applications for licensure by waiver of examination. These have all been approved. Bob, is this list complete? Are there any others you wanted to add? We have quite a list here.
The list is complete.
Thank you. Item 6C. The following have been approved. Bob, would you any comments further about this listing?
No comments. They're fully vetted. They comply.
I also want to add a comment here, only because it's something that I've been experiencing, and that as members of the board, you know, in your various duties and responsibilities out there, is to remind our fellow practitioners who are not practicing as a sole proprietor that even if they're considered an LLC, as we have one example here. What is a PLLC, by the way? Well, regardless.
Professional.
Okay, I'm thinking we typically say LLC in these things, but I guess they've named themselves differently. That even if it's a sole member of an LLC, they still practice under the corporate statutes and are required to have a corporate practice of architecture certificate, if that's the right term. And I've personally been involved with some confusion on numerous occasions, because people say, well, the statutes are under the corporate statutes, but it's subparagraph F addresses LLC. A little bit of history. There was a period in time where LLCs were not permitted as a form of professional practice. They have been for some number of years, but it does require this action to be taken. And please remind our fellows that this is a requirement moving forward. It always has been, and it's just a matter of knowledge and enforcement. So,
can I ask
David,
a question?
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Paulette.
Who, me or okay? So, in terms of enforcement, and the statement that you just made, do you want the department to do any kind of enforcement on those types of cases, or just tell them you need to get your corporate, your company licensed? What's the board's feeling on that?
Well, I'll give my opinion I don't see a need for enforcement unless, I think most times, I think this is a lack of understanding. And I think part of it is generated by some confusion in the statutory language, because the very first words of that subsection is for the corporate practice of architecture. I think I'm just paraphrasing here. And then it goes into the various subsets after that. It probably could use a change to clarify that a little bit and remove the confusion. We'll leave that for another day, I think. But I don't think that there's an ethics lapse here. I think it's a genuine, like, I don't need that because I'm not a corporation. I heard that a bunch of times. Well, yes, you are. And if you look at the application, there's a checkbox. I'm talking about LLCs for LLC. You're not a sole proprietor. And it takes some convincing sometimes. Sometimes it's not. I tell people it's not a burdensome review process. And if you have all your ducks in order and it doesn't take long. It's an administrative process. It doesn't require a vote of the board. It can happen quickly. Anybody else have an opinion about that? That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, David, I agree that it's just a common misunderstanding. I think when people get an individual license, whether it's in Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, they think that's it. They're not necessarily immediately directed to the corporate license statutes in those states to understand that, sure, you also, if you want to practice as a corporation or an LLC, you need to get this other, license. I just don't think it's prevalent in the individual application procedures. And again, I'm saying this is not just Connecticut. I know that there's been confusion in our neighboring states as well. People just don't know that they need to go through this. And then beyond that, it's difficult to understand what the process is, that they have to register with the Secretary of State first and then come back to DCP.
That process would, in order to get this corporate practice, Bob's looking at the make sure that they have registered with the Secretary of State, I believe. I mean, that's a must when we see somebody on this list.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I think
an out-of-state architect who's an LLC in another jurisdiction who has not registered with the Secretary of State, has not registered with us here. We wouldn't know about those people unless somebody pulled that out, understood it, made a complaint essentially that they were practicing. That's something I don't even know how we would deal with, but that's
David?
Yeah.
Just to go back, you started this discussion. Can you repeat what you said in the very beginning? You were talking about sole proprietors, or you're talking about individuals who are LLCs and their requirement to become registered.
I was differentiating between somebody who's a sole proprietor who does not require a corporate certificate and an individual, an LLC with only a single member. That seems to
Okay.
be where people get hung up here.
Understood, yep.
And I think they also get hung up where what Angela was mentioning, which is an individually licensed architect who then forms a company, but does not realize if they have formed a company to offer and practice architecture, they need to get that company license.
Yes. It
So
would
that's
seem to
also the other
me
issue.
that connection would have to be made at the Secretary of State's office, to say, oh, by the way, now you're an LLC, now you need, but that's not, I don't think we have any jurisdiction over them. So
No.
we're not gonna be able to force
That's
that to
not
happen. It would be helpful in terms of the sort of friendly business climate that we have in Connecticut, that connection is made when somebody wants to be an architectural corporation or LLC, that they're reminded that they need to apply through DCP subsequent to their being, receiving that.
Yeah, and even when to use their corporate stamp versus their individual stamp remains kind of a mystery to some people.
David and
Yes.
Paulette, if an individual applies, or I get questions if an individual has an LLC, but they say, do I have to register as an LLC, or can I offer my services as a sole proprietor? Does it go back to a function of how they're signing the contract with the consumer? If they want to do it as, John Smith, sole proprietor, and set aside their LLC designation, can they do that? Do we still require them to register as, to get the corporate license with us?
I would think it has everything to do with that. For the life of me, I can't understand why somebody would set up an LLC and then practice as a sole proprietor. The whole point is to have some kind of protection to your personal assets. Would make no sense.
I get a lot of questions like that, and I just remember, my years with the board. Am I correct in assuming if it goes back to how they're offering their services on the contract?
Yeah, but I'd worry about, just in general, if somebody were saying that, are they looking for just not to avoid our, how would we ever know if somebody's signing a contract one way or the other? We don't see those instruments of business.
Exactly.
And if that's simply to save the application fee and the annual cost of a corporate certificate, I don't know that. And I would think they'd be putting themselves at risk.
Your insurance would be a problem.
Well, yeah, your insurance is, you're buying it as an entity, and assuming that they practice that way, they would have no insurance. Exactly right. Why would you ever do that? And even if they practice, I think, as an LLC, but didn't get a certificate from us, I think that they might have some issues then legally. If there were a complaint that you weren't certified, that would be an ethical lapse, I would think. Possibly. I don't want to adjudicate for that, but.
And it could be also offering to practice architecture without a license, because what would they do? Like, so if we see, if you see, okay, Paulette Annan's Architectural LLC or Inc., but I don't have a license, then
a corporate license, yeah.
Then I'm going to be in trouble if someone complains to say, I went and I looked up and I don't see this company licensed as an architectural company, and then that would be a violation of our. So.
I think Angela, to your other question about, I've been thinking about this for a while. Maybe it would be helpful if we clarified the use of seals. It's always required that there's an individual architect sealing documents, but the understanding I've always had is you can also place your corporate seal on there, but you can't put your corporate seal in exclusion of an individual's seal in responsible control of the documents.
Right. I think the corporate seals just, stay in somebody's drawer, but everybody's always like, well, when would I use this?
Well, I use both. I use both. And I
I've
would,
seen both too.
my recommendation is any firm that has that, use both, because that sort of reinforces that potential corporate shield. But you know, you can never protect yourself as a professional from what is it, errors and omissions. These things, you know, flow back to the individual.
Right.
And
So David, I might offer as well another avenue. I think it would be helpful for either our website or our materials that we send individuals upon licensure to clarify this corporate practice process. But I might also offer, if Gina's still on the line, we met as a board at AIA recently talking about the electronic seal clarification process for our members. And maybe within that informative document that we're looking to produce for the AIA membership in the state. Again, it doesn't reach all architects, only our members. Maybe we could also look for that document to help provide some clarity on this as well.
Paulette, is this a place where the board should do what is it, a statement? What's the right term?
What, policy guidance?
Policy guidance. I wasn't thinking that, but
Okay, good.
along those. No, a declarative ruling. Is this a declarative ruling? It's really not. It's just kind of I don't know.
Can it be a memorandum or something lighter than what you're talking about?
As long as it's not like policy or any kind of rulemaking, then yeah, and that's the sticky thing too.
So it's not really a declarative ruling. It's I mean, where do we explain, you know, statutes and regulations don't necessarily explain. Well, they could say, we could add language potentially to the regulations down the road that say, you know, the use of a corporate seal is in addition to the use of an individual seal, and not really go into like why you might do that. I think that's up to the firm's business practices and attorneys to understand why that's maybe valuable to them. But that they still always require a individual seal. I have seen drawings come through at the state with just a corporate seal. We reject those. And I think the building officials have been given guidance on that directly, and they're really the gatekeeper for this. Any further discussion? Angela, you're on mute. I don't know if you're talking to us or not, or your cat.
No, that was a remark, not with this board, sorry.
Okay. So any other discussion about this? I don't think there's any action at this point, right? Comments of concerns of any other comments or concerns?
I'd like to ask for guidance, I guess, on this one. I'm getting phone calls and emails from people, from architects who are getting a reciprocal license and asking for a certificate from Connecticut. We do not charge, as you know, anyone that is licensed in their, you know, it's their first license, and we do a newly licensed event. But other people who've asked for them that are licensed in Connecticut, we have offered this. But now I'm getting it from people who are like actually reciprocal license. They'd like a certificate.
Yeah.
My concern is they'd have to be signed by the commissioner and by you, David. And I don't know if that's something that you both want to do, even though we do charge a fee to those people. So and the calls I'm getting, and I'm not sure if they're going to Bob or someone else in DCP, but they've told me that DCP has advised them to contact us to get the certificate. So I just want to know what you feel, that, you know, how we should move forward with that.
I honestly think that, you know, we're doing this certificates as a goodwill gesture, but it's not something the state has been providing, as you well know. I think this is my personal opinion is that we, you know, we can continue to do it for newly licensed architects in the state, and those that precede, you know, that fall into that gap if they request it, that were licensed in Connecticut initially, but we didn't provide at the time, right? Because it's kind of unfair that they didn't get something. But in terms of everybody else, I would say just no, we don't do that.
I agree, David. I think you just do the newly licensed ones. Otherwise, it's just going to get crazy.
And it's burdensome. I mean, it's burdensome to the chair. And I mean, I promise I won't be the chair forever. And it's burdensome to AIA Connecticut. And even if you make a few bucks, it's probably still not worth it. And it's burdensome to the commissioner. And this commissioner is doing it, but I can't guarantee future commissioners are going to do it, right? I hope so.
All I asked then too, because you know, in case, Bob, anything comes through to you requesting it, that depending on the year that they're, you know, if they were initially licensed in Connecticut, we don't have a problem in doing it. And we did this for 2 people, as David knows, that were licensed in, I think it was like 15 and 16 or 14 and 15. And it was before we started doing it through AIA. So we had no problem in including them this last time. But as I said, you know, I've received 2 phone calls and 1 email, and 2 of them were reciprocal licenses. And I said, well, you know, I'd get back to them because I didn't know how you wanted to handle that. And with the amount that we're seeing of reciprocal licenses now coming in, like 50, you know, or more every time that you know, every 2 months, that would be a lot of work for us too.
Angela, Twig.
I agree. I would just say it's not provided, not necessary, not provided.
Yeah, it'd be good to have that clarity that it's only for initial Connecticut licensure.
Yeah.
If I get it,
And thank you, Gina, for providing that. It just seems unreasonable to be able to expand it.
So,
Bob, you had something to say?
no, then if I get any inquiries from on reciprocal licenses, that I could just tell them that we don't do that, you know.
Yeah.
If the individual was licensed by exam 10 years ago and lost the certificate for whatever reason, or it was damaged, that's one thing, but a reciprocity.
No, I don't know if that's,
agree.
I don't know if they were given a certificate and it got water damaged or lost, or their dog ate it. I don't think that elevates to getting a new. I think it's when somebody didn't get one.
Never
I don't
got
know. That's
okay. Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm clear on that. Yes, that's good with the board. Sure.
I want you guys to fix the ALB corporate seal. Here's a question for AIA. Right now, the impression, the seal impression is the DCP seal. It used to be the ALB seal, but that broke. And I guess there's actually 2 technical issues here. We're having a problem with actually applying the seals to the documents that this is not worthy of the board. The actual seals are the old style Avery seals are heavier and they withstand the stamping, but the new ones not so much. Anyhow, I'm going to end the discussion here. The next meeting is set for May 21st, 2021. If there's not any further comment, move to adjourn.
Just from me, that's one of the possible dates for my father's memorial service. So heads up, I may not be available that date.
Noted. Thank you, Twig.
I
Okay.
second the motion.
It's okay. Okay, all in favors? Aye.
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 Okay. So long, everybody. This has been a wonderful meeting. Thank you.
As
Thank you.
always, have a great week.
For the
Ken.
next
Thank you.
600 and whatever
Bye, guys.
meeting. Bye, Paulette. Bye.